Good afternoon, you wee bastards, and welcome back to War Thunder with Koala. Today, right, I'm just gonna say it now, this is the best looking aircraft in War Thunder, not biased at all. Alright, so today we're talking about the Hawker Hunter F.6, which I did cover quite extensively in my dev server overview. I'm sure most of you saw that. Before I get started, thank you for all the support on the channel recently. I'm proud to say we've hit 20,000 subscribers just before my 22nd birthday, which is tomorrow. And we'll be doing a celebratory livestream in just a few hours, so a birthday livestream and 20,000 sub celebration. What a milestone. Come follow me on Twitch at the link in the description, it's going to be fun. And you guys can help me get partner on Twitch, that's kind of my next goal, my next immediate milestone for the channel. Oh, and we're going to be doing giveaways of Golden Eagles, so yeah, if you want 1,000 free Golden Eagles, then I guess download the Koala stream in the description below. What the fuck did that even mean? Anyway, the Hunter F.6, let's talk about it, because this aircraft is a very interesting one, and most definitely my most anticipated edition of Update 1.89 Imperial Navy. Well, this and the new Clouds. We've been waiting on them for 6 years. So, the Hawker Hunter first flew in 1951 and served for almost 65 years before being retired from service with the Lebanese Air Force in 2014. Designed to replace first-generation jet fighters like the Meteor and Venom in RAF service, the Hunter quickly made a name for itself, achieving world speed records in 1953 and being famed for the ease of its maintenance. While its speed would be completely outclassed by the American Century Series fighters and the Soviet MiG-19 and MiG-21 only years after its introduction with the Royal Air Force, and the British Lightning around the same time, the aircraft made a great ground strike and reconnaissance platform for the RAF throughout the 1960s, and it was also used in a two-seat trainer configuration until the early 1990s, when it retired completely from British service. There were many different variants of the Hunter, especially during its early design and introduction phases, where many different engines were being fitted. The F1, the first production variant and the first variant we see in War Thunder, used the Rolls-Royce Avon Mark 113. Other variants would use Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire engines, the Avon SA-7R afterburning or reheating engine, which was fitted to the Mark III, the variant which, by the way, never carried any guns, that's why we're not getting it in War Thunder. Our new F6, the last true fighter variant of the Hunter, uses the Avon Mark 203, which does not have reheat, but produces over 10.1 thousand pounds of thrust. That's around a 20% higher thrust to weight ratio on the Hunter F6 than a CL-13B Sabre Mark 6, and equal to that of the F-100D Super Sabre, which lets it achieve a top speed of 1,150 kph, redlining at around 1,170 and retaining over 1,100 in a straight line at low altitude. It's also capable of well over Mach in a high altitude dive, but let's be honest, most jet dogfights these days are happening near the ground anyway. The F6 featured strengthened wings, leading edge slats and a revised tailplane, improving stability and responsiveness at its top speeds. The aircraft also has 4 hardpoints alongside its 4 30mm Aiden cannons, and is capable of carrying iron bombs up to 1,000 pounds each, and I believe in real life unguided rockets as well. Keep in mind that 2 of those hardpoints though were reserved for carrying drop tanks, so only 2 for ground-based ordnance, or, as we see in game, experimental infrared guided missiles, designated SRAAM, or short range air-to-air missile. Now these are going to be the main weapon of the Hunter F6, which is something I'm really looking forward to. Currently, we don't have missiles capable enough to take over from offensive guns as the main weapon of a jet fighter. Even on the Mitsubishi T2, the AIM-9Es are usually used less than the Vulcan gun, given that they're just too easy to evade. The SRAAMs on this new Hunter variant, however, are much more capable and much harder to evade, and while they may not quote-unquote take over from the offensive cannons as the primary armament, the way I'm going to describe it is, if you count every kill you get in the F6 when spaded or from when you get the missiles, you're probably going to have just as many, if not more kills with the SRAAMs as you will with the Aidens. I and some other jet players already use the AIM-9Es just as frequently as the 20mm cannons on the F-100 Super Sabre, if not more frequently, so for us, the players who get the most use out of missiles, well, this is a very exciting addition, and definitely the main factor that the Hunter F6 brings to the table. Otherwise known as Mongoose, the SRAAM is an advanced heat-seeking missile capable of Mach 3 with thrust vectoring to give it better maneuverability and an off-bore sight tracking capability, or that is, how far from the front of the missile the target is, of 90 degrees. Or in other words, provided the target does not get 45 degrees off to your left and right, or up and down too I suppose, within the flight time the missile takes to reach that target, he's not getting away. Oh, and did I mention that you carry 4 of these things? The SRAAMs almost match the capability of the US AIM-9L missiles currently seen on the AH-1Z Viper, a top-tier helicopter. The Hunter F.6, however, at least on the dev server, has these things a little lower at 9.7, and I do believe that's the battle rating it should be. And with the speed to really chase down a MiG-19 as long as he's not already going top speed, get to within launching distance behind your target and the aircraft is almost guaranteed dead. He's going to have to pull max elevator to avoid that missile at max speeds. The downside to these missiles, however, is that they are rear aspect only, meaning that you can't lock a target coming head on to you, just the same with the AIM-9Bs and Es and the Russian missiles, which I can't remember the name of, R-13s I believe. Although you can lock a target with the SRAAMs at, I believe, up to 90 degrees, which is very nice. The inability for all aspect locking is what actually led to these missiles never being adopted into British service. They actually elected to purchase AIM-9Ls instead, and the SRAAMs never left the prototype stage, only ever being mounted to the Hawker Hunter they were tested on, I believe, although don't quote me on that, they might have been mounted on other test platforms. There was additionally an anti-radar homing variant of this missile named SRAAM, similar in performance to the AGM-122 sidearm, and the work done on the project would go on to become the ASRAAM, or Advanced Short-Range Air-to-Air Missile, which is the dogfighting missile of choice for aircraft like the RAF's Tornadoes, Typhoons, and even the F-35 Lightnings today, along with the Royal Australian Air Force's FA-18F Super Hornets. Basically, think AIM-9X. There's also one other slight hamper on these missiles that will affect the Hunter F6 in-game, and that is its flight time. To put it plainly, these missiles do not have a good range. About 2.1 kilometers is the maximum range these missiles can reach before running out of fuel and falling out of the sky, but against another jet flying at average jet speeds, it's more like 1.7 kilometers. That's really the absolute maximum range you should be launching from to guarantee a hit. Short-range missiles, you got that right. Comparative to an AIM-9E, which can launch from 4 kilometers away and still hit a target traveling almost 1000 kph, that really isn't going to be much of a difference at all. Here's my reasoning. While you can launch an AIM-9E from 4 kilometers away and hit a MiG who's AFK climbing, most of the time if you're launching from ranges that far, you're just trying to force your opponent to turn and bleed energy. The majority of your kills with the game's current air-to-air missiles are going to be launched from 0.8 to maybe 1.3 kilometers away anyway. That also minimizes the chances of your opponent seeing the rocket is launched warning in time to actually evade the things, especially if they're preoccupied with another engagement. The SRAAMs really won't be noticeably lower in range to AIM-9Es, because it's very rare that launching from more than 2 kilometers will actually result in a hit anyway, and so with the increased capability of the SRAAMs as far as tracking and maintaining a lock on the target goes, yeah, these things are going to be fun to use. Now, the aircraft is still a Hunter. It's still subsonic in a straight line at any altitude and cannot maneuver with the CL-13, G91Y or MiG-17. Even a MiG-19 might out-dogfight it. Without missiles, it's going to be a bit of a pain to use, and I want to bring up that Gaijin, this is really the maximum, difference in effectiveness where being without missiles stock is still acceptable. In my opinion, just give the F-100D and T2 AIM-9Bs stock and AIM-9Es as the upgrade module anyway, along with the upgraded missiles on the MiG-19 PT, give it the first missile stock. When we start seeing even more capable missiles than these on aircraft, well, that's going to mean that there's too big of a difference in performance between having them and not having them for us to not have stock missiles of some kind. Regardless, once you have these missiles on the Hunter F6, it's going to become a beast if you know how to use air-to-air missiles properly, even given that tiny maximum range comparative to contemporary missiles in game. It may be slow, but it's not the speed that makes this aircraft so effective, it's the advanced equipment that it uses. Also, please give us a gun sight lead indicator on this aircraft. And the Sabres, considering that was one of the things Sabres and Hunters were famed for, that was what made them so scary to MiG-15s IRL, was their gun sight lead indicators that they actually had. I also kind of hope that Gaijin amends the Hunter F6 to the F6A variant, which carried a braking parachute. That is literally the only difference, so it wouldn't change the performance of the aircraft. At least that's the only one that is ever likely to matter in War Thunder. The real F6A also carried more fuel than the regular F6. That's all. There's also the FGA-9 variant, which was the ground attack designation for the F6A, and I'm pretty sure this was the one that carried SNEB rocket pods. Besides that, no difference. A drag chute will just be nice to have so that we can get fast turnarounds in this aircraft, and that's going to become even more important for the F6 because it really needs its missiles in order to be at a 9.7 level of performance. Once you've launched all 4, you're a 9.0 aircraft. You're probably going to want to be returning to the airfield, landing and rearming. It's also much safer if you do that earlier in the battle, when the enemy players are still caught up with your teammates in the air, and you're going to be able to be a lot more effective in the battle overall if you can have that quick turnaround. A drag chute on a Hunter is really going to speed up your landing process, and having that smaller window of vulnerability will also be a relatively significant bonus to this aircraft's overall performance. The way I see this aircraft being most effective is in a squad, when you can coordinate with your teammates effectively and basically have the guarantee of a wingman, which you often don't with random teammates. When an enemy slots onto your squad mate, you get him to defensive fly for a second, bleed a bit of speed allowing you to slot into the hostile aircraft 6, and as you're about to fire a missile, tell your squad mate to level out, hit the launch button from about a kilometer away, and boom, that's going to be a dead aircraft 90% of the time. You then act as the bait for your squad mate, and 2 or 3 Hunter F6s in a squad using them in this way will very effectively be able to end a game, whether that's against CL-13s or T2s. That's right, even though this aircraft is quote-unquote just a Hunter, just a subsonic or transonic jet without an afterburning engine, without nearly the speed of a MiG-19 or Super Sabre, it's going to be a jet you'll really have to watch out for. Do not underestimate this plane, because if you don't pay attention to one pulling in behind you, you're gonna die. In simulator mode, the Hunter F6 may become the best aircraft in the game, especially in a 2 or 4 man squad. They'll just be unbeatable given the performance of those SRAAMs. They may not be rivals to the T2, and yes, we still do need an aircraft with enough speed to rival the T2 on its own playing field. The T2 currently is killable of course, but it has the ability to control every engagement if the pilot knows what he's doing, and anytime you kill a T2 in any aircraft but another T2, it's because that pilot fucked up. Nonetheless, against a Super Sabre, G91Y or MiG-19, this jet is going to be very nice indeed, definitely worth a 9.7 spot above any other transonic aircraft, even though it doesn't have the speed to rival a MiG-19 who runs, just because those missiles are so good. Without missiles, a CL-13A is going to be a better jet than this thing, but with them, yeah, 9.7 is a good spot for this thing. This is the type of increased performance that we're going to have to get used to. People have pointed out that an early F-16 Falcon or F-18 Hornet, they don't travel much faster than a T2. At least the F-16 can't when carrying ordnance. It can exceed Mach 2 in a dive with a clean wing though, and the Hornet can't even reach Mach 2 at all. But the F-4 Phantom, a much older aircraft, can hit Mach 2.3. Now obviously if we ever get an F-18 in War Thunder, it's going to have to come at a much higher battle rating than an F-4 Phantom, probably higher than an F-14 too, even though the F-14 is once again much faster than it, because even though it is a slower aircraft, the equipment it carries, the weapon systems that it can be outfitted with, well, it's that advancement in technology rather than the aircraft performance that's going to make it superior to its older and quote-unquote simpler, yet substantially faster counterparts. The Hunter F6 with those SRAAM missiles is going to be a strong rival to the F100D and MiG-19 PT, MiG-19S, even though it really lacks the speed, and it's going to be the first type of aircraft that's superior to rivals that outspeed it. For the longest time in War Thunder, it's been all about who has the higher speed, who can dive better, climb faster, and hold the best speed advantage. This is why the Hunter F1, while having the highest top speed in the game, it was the aircraft that would rip last if you dived from 10 kilometers until SRAAMs jets arrived. It wasn't the best aircraft because the CL-13A can hold a higher top speed and use it more effectively, and the MiG-17 just about matches it, although its energy retention is poorer. The F6 though? Well, now, speed isn't everything, and that's something that's going to be really tough for all the OG War Thunder jet pilots to get used to. Probably something they'll immediately dislike this video just because I said something that up until now would have sounded dumb. Speed isn't everything? The game revolves around speed. A slow aircraft for the matchmaker is always going to be at a disadvantage compared to a counterpart that can outspeed it. It's what made aircraft like the G91 superior to something like an ME-262C. Even though the 262 carries a much better armament, armament is only so good as the aircraft is capable of utilising it, and a slow aircraft will get outclassed without being able to get guns on target against a faster aircraft being piloted by a skilled player. Speed is life. That was our old War Thunder mantra, and if you said otherwise, Unless you're in a Spitfire, Zero, or G55, you're pretty much an idiot. Of course, there are other exceptions in props, don't be offended. But in jets, speed was almost exclusively the deciding factor. Not just top speed, but the retention of that speed, the maneuverability at top speed. That's why Sabres have always beat MiGs, they're simply more capable of utilising a higher speed effectively, even though a MiG will outdive them and the MiG-17 will easily outpace most Sabre variants. The Hunter F.6, however, well, it's not really much faster than an F1, at least not to a degree that will be noticeable in battle, and it's definitely far slower than a Super Sabre or MiG-19, but it will match them in performance, especially if you know how to make correct use of air-to-air missiles. See my guide. Once again, this is a similar situation to the eventuality that one day we get an F-18 in War Thunder. Yes, it might be several hundred kph slower than even an F-104 Starfighter in top speed, but it's going to be superior to even an F-14 Tomcat because it's more advanced, and the Hunter F-6 has access to the most advanced armament of any fixed-wing aircraft in War Thunder, at least right now. Now, I love me some modern jet combat, and War Thunder is going to be a very nice place for it. Project Wingman and Ace Combat are a little arcadey for my tastes, while DCS is a bit too daunting and confusing, and it's very in-depth, so you really have to, I guess, be in a particular mood to go into some PvP in an F-15 in that game. You have to have enough experience to actually know what you're doing, and that takes time and effort. Like I said, it's very daunting to get into. War Thunder is a nice kind of in-between, not as taxing on the brain as DCS, but not as silly as something like Project Wingman, which is great fun, don't get me wrong, and I'll be revisiting it soon. War Thunder with missiles advanced enough for you to really count on them, rather than just hoping your opponent doesn't notice or evade them, is going to be really fun for me personally, and this is why the Hunter F6 is my most anticipated edition of patch 1.89. Like I said before, I hope Gaijin changes it out for the F6A variant just so that we get the drag chute. I would really like that, but either way, it's going to be very interesting to see how it does after a few weeks of being playable on the live server, and we are definitely going to be covering it on the channel, probably quite a lot. I'm so excited to take it into some AirRB and hopefully get some squads together in Air Sim too. Anyway lads, I hope you have enjoyed this video, and that if you did, you leave a like, subscribe and hit that notification bell, join the 360 squad, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Are you as excited about this thing as I am? Come follow me on Twitter and Twitch. Remember, big celebration livestream in a couple of hours. I expect to see you all there. All 20,000 of you. That's right, we're going to have a bigger stream than Shroud. Gonna happen. Oh, and giveaways too, so if you needed extra incentive to come watch me fuck up in front of everyone, then yeah, there you go. Come join the Discord and check out Patreon if you were to support the channel further, and always remember lads, keep your bagpipes to hand, keep your kilt on, and I shall see you in the next one. I say a wee thank you to these lads for supporting me on Patreon. Captain Fubar, DA261, Gisli Gadarsson, and Dark Recon. You lads are bra. If you wish to join them, come check out the link in the description below.